Welcome to another episode of Michael's Record Collection. I'm very excited to have with me today the two co-hosts from Something for Nothing, a Rush fan cast. Steve and Gerry are with me. Steve and Gerry, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
I am a huge Rush fan, and I've found your podcast, and I've been consuming it as quickly as I can, but there are still a few episodes I haven't been able to get to. And it seems like every week I find that you're reading an email from somebody who's kind of doing the same thing that I did, except for a lot of those people seem to be going in order and I'm just jumping around.
Well, we appreciate you listening. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So you guys conceived this show on a trip out west to see Rush. Is that correct? Or it was just a trip out west?
No, actually, we were going out to Denver to go to Red Rocks. We had never been there before. And we were seeing Death Cab for Cutie. And in between the flight and the show, we decided to take a ride out to Utah, to Arches National Park. And on that ride, Gerry and I were discussing podcasts. And Gerry, maybe you take it from here.
Yeah, we were just talking about the different things we love about podcasts because we have different tastes. Some of them overlap. He's more of a sports guy, and I'm just more of like a general interest type of person. Murder podcasts, I suppose, too, in there. And one thing we found we had in common is that we loved it when there were two hosts, and there was a certain topic. You know what I mean? Just like basically one topic that could be branched out into other things, but it was basically a topic. And I think that's about as far as we got, right, Steve? We were just like, yeah, this would be cool to do something like this. And you're like, yeah, wouldn't it be cool to do something like this? And then we didn't. That was it. And then as we were driving along, we were listening to Rush, and we were listening to the song Kid Gloves. And Steve didn't know what the phrase "kid gloves" meant, so I think I went off on some kind of long story about the origin of the phrase "kid gloves," and then it was like a Seinfeld moment. And I was like, "Well, hey, we could do this." And Steve's like, "What? Talk about kid gloves?" I'm like, "No, talk about Rush. Talk about Rush." And then it was like 2 weeks later, we just started doing it.
This is the show.
This is the show, exactly.
It's even got a Seinfeld name, Something for Nothing.
Right.
Which obviously is also a very good Rush song. How you guys have known each other for a long time? How long have you known each other?
We've known each other since the 5th grade, so it's been over 40 years. So we have that in common with Rush. They were together for over 40 years. Gerry and I have been together. We've been friends for over 40 years. And I feel like that helps with the chemistry of our show. And strangely, we're going to be talking about Signals today, and one of the songs is Chemistry.
That's right.
And so
nice.
Rush has chemistry. We think we have chemistry, and we think that's why it works.
Steve is the king of segues. King of segues. There isn't a sentence that somebody could say that he can't segue it into something else. It's amazing.
It's a good skill to have. I actually,
it is.
That's one of the things that I liked about your podcast is you do have this chemistry, and it's clear that you have a friendship and a common respect, and that you get along really great. And I think people with a natural good chemistry can speak to each other without speaking over each other and that kind of thing. I think it all works very well. And I think in your honor, I wore my Rush Armor and Sword concert shirt from the Snakes and Arrows tour. But yeah, it's been a fun listen for me. I kind of started I think I started with your moving pictures. When you went through moving pictures, I think it was like 4 episodes, and I just kind of I picked a few other albums, or maybe I started with Power Windows. I started with Power Windows because that was my first Rush concert. Was Power Windows. What was your first Rush concerts?
Power Windows.
Power Windows.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, 1986, March 29th, I think it was, 1986. We told the story on the podcast. I had 4 tickets to the show. I had nobody to drive me, and Gerry was the only one I knew with a license.
My birthday's in January, so I was the only one who had a license.
There you go.
The rest is history.
It was a good investment because you had to get there.
That's
exactly
true. That's true. And I don't remember a particular. I don't know. It's not like I wanted to go. It's not that I was just like, oh, Rush is playing. I had heard a couple songs maybe, but I'll at that time I would just do anything. I was 17 or whatever. You know what I mean? Be like, yeah, I'll go
Yeah.
to the Meadowlands Arena in East Rutherford, New Jersey, to go see a concert. I don't care. And it was really probably the best decision of my life. Definitely one of the better decisions of my entire life. It's just strange thinking about how that 2 hours literally just pointed me in a different direction for my entire life. It's quite remarkable.
So let's talk about how you found Rush, your first exposure to Rush. I'm interested to know because for me, Rush was a band that I'd heard some of their songs, but until MTV came along, it was just a band that I sometimes heard on the radio. And I think it was really with MTV and getting to see them play that I realized how complex their music was and how amazing they were at their jobs. And it kind of just grew from there.
Well, for me, it was the Columbia House Record Club. I joined Columbia House, I believe, in 1982. And two of the albums I picked, based on hearing songs on the radio, as you said, were Moving Pictures and Signals. And I was in a band at the time, and the drummer in the band and I, whenever we jammed, we'd always be playing Rush. We'd be playing Tom Sawyer, Red Barchetta, Limelight, whatever. And I only knew those two albums up until the time we went to the show in 1986.
Mm-hmm.
And that changed everything for me, seeing that show, seeing Rush live. I was in after that. I went out and bought every album, and I'm pretty sure Gerry felt the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I knew nothing. I went in knowing nothing, and I came out needing to know everything.
Yeah.
It was really a transformative 2 hours or whatever. I just sat there. I didn't know any of the songs. I might have heard Tom Sawyer, but I don't think I said a word to anybody the entire time. I just could not believe what I was witnessing. And then I think afterwards, for a couple hours, we drove around listening to Exit Stage Left. And that was it. I don't even remember. I might have just gone to the record store the next day or the next couple of days. I bought them. I bought LPs. I bought the cassettes so I could have them in the car. And I basically listened to Rush exclusively, probably for at least a year, if not two.
Wow. How many times have you guys seen Rush live?
I believe I'm at 28, and I think, Gerry, you're at 26, right? There were two shows that I went to that Gerry did not attend, but I've seen them 28 times, and I wish I'd seen them more. Knowing what I know now, I wish I could go back and go to a bunch more shows, but alas, that will not happen.
Yeah, who had the money back then?
Yeah, right.
to go all of these shows. I know, we know people who just have traveled all over the country, if not the world, to see them.
Yeah,
that just wasn't in the cards for us back
then. So what I hear Steve saying, and I agree with him, is how I wish that I could live it all again.
Exactly.
I have seen Rush more than any band that I've seen, but I have only seen them 8 times. I worked in college. I worked several jobs and paid my own way through school. So not only did I never have money, but I never had time to go. And then I worked in sports for several years, and basically from September to May, working in hockey, you don't make plans to do anything. You're working every night. You're working 70, 80-hour weeks, that kind of thing. So I haven't gotten to see them as much as I wanted to, but I had a very special Rush concert experience because a lot of people, when they get married, they have bachelor parties, and they have a cut loose, and maybe they go to Vegas, or maybe somebody hires a stripper or whatever. I went to a Rush concert with my friends.
That's awesome.
We got married in Pennsylvania, and my friends, most of my friends live in Ohio, where I grew up, and there was a Rush concert the week before the wedding in Columbus at Polaris Amphitheater, and I said, that's my bachelor party. That's what I'm going to do. So that's my One of my
Sounds like
many stories.
Sounds like a good night out to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Beats my bachelor party, that's for sure.
All right. So before we get to it, we'll be able to do this again at the end. But I want you to tell people, now that you have their attention, where they can find you online.
Gerry, you want to take this?
No, you do it every episode, Steve. You might as well do it now.
Well, we're on Twitter at Rush Fancast. Instagram, we are at The Rushcast. Email, it's therushcast@gmail.com. And you can find us pretty much on every podcast app. Podbean is our host, but we're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're on Stitcher. Just search something for Nothing, a Rush Fancast, and you'll find us.
Yeah, if you haven't heard the show, you guys get great guests. I love the Hugh Syme episode that you guys did recently. Just the way you guys break down songs and the way you break down the lyrics, it's great because it brings new things out in the music to me. The music that I've been listening to for years, it never occurred to me, for example, that he's got a date with fate and a black sedan could mean the hearse. It never occurred to me.
Right.
Until I listened to your show. And that was actually fairly recently. So I like the way you guys really dissect the lyrics. Everything about your show is I find interesting, and I think Rush fans would find interesting. But it's not just you two. There's a third member of this outfit that I am still trying to figure out who this person is. The person who does your bass intro and outro. You always thank Lex. I don't know who this person is.
Well, you obviously haven't listened to episode 100 of our podcast.
That's right.
We had Lex on as a guest.
Okay.
He's a friend of ours from high school. He's a bassist, and we've known him for almost 40 years as well. Mm-hmm. And when we started the podcast, I'm a bassist too, but I'm nowhere near as good as Lex is. So when we started the podcast, we needed something for the open and close, but we didn't want to use Rush music for copyright reasons. So we decided to ask Lex to do a bass line for us, and he did, and he's been doing that for us every episode since. And he's amazing.
Yeah, it's a great intro and outro, and it's the cool thing about it is it's unique to your show. It's different every time. And it's great. I mean, it gets you in the mood for whatever you're going to be talking about that time. And
talk about Rush.
Yeah. And speaking of talking about Rush, I wanted to have you guys on because I love your show. I love what you do, and I wanted to tell people about it. And although my audience is smaller than yours, maybe a few people will find your podcast and become new fans and regular listeners, and that's what we're here to do. And so I thought, usually when I have a guest on, if it's a musician, we talk about whatever they've got going on, whether their new album or their a documentary or a book or whatever. When I have somebody on, it's usually another podcaster. I usually let them pick whatever their favorite album is. But since there's two of you, and since I've heard you guys a number of times struggle to find your favorite songs, your favorite albums. I think Steve has about 70 songs in his top 10 Rush songs. I figured I would make it easy, and we'll talk about my favorite Rush album, and then if we can have you guys back on, and we can talk about your favorite Rush albums if you narrow it down. Sound good?
That works for us.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like Signals isn't one of our. It has to be in the top 10. I mean, it has to be.
We love Signals, so this is all
be
good.
In the top 10.
I don't know where it would be. It could be top 5. I just am dreading doing those. We're going to do those at some point. I am dreading it though.
Signals is definitely in my top 19 Rush studio albums. It's in there.
Yeah, somewhere in there. It is hard. I've been on a few other podcasts recently where we've had to rank things and pick playlists, and it's like choosing between your children. It's difficult sometimes, but we are here to talk about Signals. Got it in the 5.1. Got it on the CD. I don't have it on vinyl. I haven't gotten it on vinyl yet, but I'm sure I'll get it on vinyl. I had it on cassette. I got that from the BMG Music Club on cassette.
All right.
That's the name of the other one.
That's the other one. We were trying to come up with that.
Yeah, I used to regularly have like 3 or 4 different accounts going with BMG at any given time.
Everybody did. Everybody did.
Yeah, Columbia House was good too. What I didn't like about Columbia House was if it wasn't their title, if it wasn't a Columbia or CBS title, they had these pink lines on the cassette, on the
Yeah.
edge of the cassette, and I hated those. So I switched over to BMG because if it wasn't like an RCA label or affiliated label, they at least just had like black print on the, they didn't have the pink
Mhm.
lines. The pink lines drove me crazy. I don't know why. So, Signals, ninth studio album for Rush. It was recorded from April to July 1982 at Le Studio in, I don't know how to pronounce this, but I'm going to say Morin Heights, Quebec. Released September 9th, 1982 on Anthem Records, produced by Rush and Terry Brown. And Hugh Syme, of course, the cover, art direction for the cover of a dog sniffing a fire hydrant, which is at least better than a dog lifting its leg on the fire hydrant.
That's on the back of the album, actually.
I'm not a huge I'm not a huge fan of the Signals cover art compared to other Rush albums. How do you guys feel about it?
I love it. I think it's one of the more iconic ones because it's so simple, and because you immediately, when you hear the word Signals, there's communication, there's someone dropping something off for someone else. You know what I mean? Like this clandestine type of attitude, and that's what the dog is doing. The dog is learning from the signals left by other dogs on the fire hydrant stuff about the dogs. And I wasn't kidding about the back of the album. If you look at the back of the CD or the album, you can see there's like a drawing of a fake town, like a rendering of a town, and there's pin cushions with yellow string. That's supposedly
There it is.
all the places. Yeah, there it is. That's all the places where the dog has gone to the bathroom. All those little red push pins symbolize. I'm telling you the truth. They symbolize the fire hydrants, and the yellow line is the P connecting them all.
That's not many locations. There's got to be some big piles.
Yeah. Usually dogs only do a little bit, but this one was just tracking it all the way from one to the other.
Perhaps the owner of the dog was picking up after it the whole time, so there was no mess. But I do like the Subdivisions tie-in with the photo as well on the back cover. Tell me, you guys researched this for your episodes on it. What was your best story that you uncovered about Signals in the course of doing your Signals episodes?
My favorite story was about the Analog Kid. In my research, it was revealed that Neil borrowed the line "too many hands on my time" from the Styx song "Too Much Time on My Hands." He just flipped it around, and so Styx inspired Rush, which I found amazing.
Yeah, that's a good story. I did not know that until I listened to your show. So that was a good story to hear. Jerry, do you have a favorite?
My favorite's about New World Man. The record company, they had like 4 minutes left on one side, and the record company wanted them to balance out the sides of the album back when album sides were supposed to run the same length. It was probably due to the fact that the cassette needed to be the same length or something. Probably some penny pinching move. So they wrote New World Man in a day in the studio and then recorded it the next day. And it became one of their biggest hits. And it's just this very simple song, and it's, I think, 3 minutes. And, it's like spontaneous genius. It's like a genie in a bottle. It's just like, oh, we need 4 minutes. Bang. Just knock this out in 2 days.
Yeah.
Get these great lyrics. Get these great lyrics, and we just kind of like tossed it off, and the next thing you know, it's like one of their biggest hits. Love that. It
was Rush's only top 40 hit number 21 in October 1982. And Michael, we've been trying to find, since those podcasts came out, Casey Kasem introducing Rush on American Top 40. We haven't been able to find it. Maybe one of your listeners can dig it up.
No, we have found it, Steve.
We did?
Oh, absolutely.
The audio?
Yeah. Yeah, you just forgot.
I forgot.
Yeah, we played it.
Are you sure?
I'm 300% sure. Where he says that he doesn't. Yeah, we'll talk about it later. Steve.
Wow.
Don't worry
Okay.
about it.
My memory's gone, Michael.
Oh, I haven't heard it on your show yet, so I'm looking forward to
Unless
that.
I'm wrong. I definitely have audio. You check, Steve. Check our Instagram page.
Maybe you didn't share it with me.
Oh, it's entirely possible.
None of us
We
are
have
getting
no-
any younger, guys. None of us are getting
we
any
have
younger.
known each other for a long time, and I have imaginary conversations with Steve, I think, and I say things, and I think I'm saying them to him, and maybe I'm not at all.
Maybe you just dreamed that you shared it with Steve.
I did.
All right. Well, that could happen. This album fell between the very highly successful Moving Pictures and Grace Under Pressure. Grace Under Pressure era was obviously very big on MTV. The videos for that were great. I am a child of the 80s, so I didn't mind their 80s look and the Steinberger bass and all of that stuff and the way they danced around. It was all great for me. This album peaked at number 10 in the United States, number 1 in Canada, and number 3 in the UK. It went platinum in the US and Canada, silver in the UK. The tour for this album lasted more than a year, from April 82 to May 83. That's a long time to be on the road.
That is a long time.
Um,
This album, even though it did very well, it turned a lot of hardcore Rush fans off, though,
Mhm.
because of the change to keyboards. So it picked up a lot of other Rush fans, I guess, that filled in the void. But a lot of fans to this day, considers Signals to be the turning off point for them.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know there are those Rush fans who think of Rush in terms of Rush without keyboards, Rush with keyboards. I tend to think of the eras of Rush as Shrieking Getty and Singing Getty. I love it all, and I don't know why you would limit yourself and say that particular musical instrument is just blasphemy. You can't have that in there. But
Well, I think Tim Comerford from Rage Against the Machine in the documentary Beyond the Lighted Stage, he said that Geddy Lee was his favorite bassist, and he didn't want to listen to a Rush where his favorite bassist didn't play bass. Now, I think he was talking more about like Hold Your Fire and Power Windows, but there are sections in some of the songs where he's not playing bass. So maybe that was just something that I guess he wanted more bass, and I guess maybe a lot of people think the same thing.
Gotta have more cowbell.
More cowbell. And in Rush's terms, that means bass.
That's right.
I think what we found, Michael, is that the fans that jumped on board with Rush in the 70s generally are the ones that were not happy with the keyboards.
Mm-hmm.
Fans that jumped on board in the 80s, like we did, were introduced to the keyboards when we jumped on board with Rush, like you were and like we were, and we embrace all eras of Rush. But I think the 70s fans are the ones that have the toughest time with the keyboards.
Yeah.
At least that's what we found.
I like to tell them then you must really hate Xanadu.
Yes. Well, the thing too is that Rush, even back in the 70s and the beginning of the 80s, before Signals, they were experimenting with things anyway. There aren't two Rush albums in a row that sound the same. So it isn't that strange to think of them doing something like this. It was just another step in their progression. And they eventually, stopped using as many keyboards. So I don't know. If anyone still thinks that, Signals is the jumping off point, I suggest you try to jump back in later on.
Yeah, maybe so. You don't get that from Van Halen fans. You don't get Van Halen fans saying, I mean, there's some, but by and large, Van Halen fans like 1984. And,
right.
When they started to put some keyboards on, and I think the keyboards on 1984 sound more dated to me than what Rush did. But that's just me. So let's talk a little bit more about this. The Rolling Stone magazine's J.D. Considine called this album mostly a wasted effort and gave it 2 stars.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. When was
he doesn't
that
know what
written?
he's talking about.
He does not know anything about anything.
It came out in 1982. I found that online. It was in the Internet Archive, and I looked at it and I read the whole thing, and I said, "Oh man, this guy." And
Man,
I wouldn't get along with him very well, or her. I don't even know if JD is a man or a woman, but I have to disagree.
yeah, I couldn't disagree anymore. This is such an amazing, beautiful album. You know, Steve and I were talking, I think we must have mentioned it on the podcast, that not only were there keyboards that set it apart from other Rush albums, but also this is the first time that Neil really started writing personal songs, like songs from his own experience, as opposed to like fantasy songs or story songs that definitely talked about the human condition, but they were talking, some of these songs are talking about his human condition, which is completely different, and you know, sets apart this album from the
Yeah.
other ones in that way as well. So I don't know how you can't be drawn in by a song like Subdivisions. So many people are just, you know, sucked in by this song because of the lyrics and the personal nature of them.
Yeah, and they're so relatable. It speaks to so many people. Let's talk about the credits. Obviously, Geddy Lee, bass guitar, synthesizers, vocals, arrangements. Alex Lifeson, electric and acoustic guitars. Moog Taurus pedals. Neil Peart, drums, percussion, arrangements. Spoken vocal on Subdivisions, which I think in the video and in concerts, it's always been Alex, as far as I know.
Yeah, he usually does it. Yeah.
And I don't know if he's miming it or actually saying it.
Well, that's a good question, Steve.
I've
Do you know?
always wondered
I
that.
have no idea. I have no idea. That's a good question.
It definitely is Neil, though.
Yeah.
On the recording.
Yeah.
And you know, we spoke with Jacob Moon, who does an excellent. He's a Canadian musician. He does an excellent cover of the song, and he played it for the guys when Subdivisions was inducted into the Canadian Songwriters Hall of Fame. And backstage of that show, he asked Neil to say the word Subdivisions into this little micro cassette recorder he had.
Nice.
And now when he plays the song, he plays Neil's version of Subdivisions into the microphone. It's
so
great.
cool. It's so cool. He should have had him do like his voice message too. Neil, can you say?
I know.
You can't come.
I don't know why I didn't ask.
Now.
I don't know why I didn't ask him to play it for us. Maybe next time we'll ask him. Yeah, that would have been funny. Like, hi, this is Neil David. Can I come to the phone?
Ben Mink from the Canadian progressive rock band FM on electric violin on Losing It. We'll talk more about that in a bit, but let's dive right into Subdivisions, one of the 3 singles from this album. These lyrics started to be written as early as 1981, and like I said, it's a relatable song. I grew up kind of out in the country, and I still felt like that kid from Subdivisions, from the song Subdivisions, that, you know, there's got to be something better out there that's not here stifling me.
Yeah, I mean, I think every kid can relate to this song, "Drawn like moths, we drift into the city." And Gerry, you had mentioned this to me just a few minutes ago, the cyclical nature of this song. At the end of the song, one of our listeners pointed this out to us. You're drawn back out to the suburbs as an adult. So you end up right back where you started, and the cycle starts all over again.
Right, but as an older person, you kind of have a fondness for the things that you leave behind. And that's what happens at the end of the song. Somewhere out of a memory of lighted streets on quiet nights. You know, it's just, that's what you remember. You don't remember the boredom. You don't remember how you were maybe the outcast. You don't remember the high school halls and the backs of cars and the basement bars. You just, 40 or 50 years later, you're just like, oh, that wasn't so bad, I guess. And you bring your kids there and then they feel the same way.
You might remember the backs of cars.
Yeah, you very well might remember those. That's true. That's why you go back.
Yeah.
But the misfits weren't in the backs of cars, Michael.
Yeah, that's
like
true.
us.
That's true. You have a very good point there. So, Subdivisions, what do you love most about this song, guys? Is it the lyrics? Is it the bass? Is it the drumming? Is it all of it put together? I mean, it's easy to say it's all of it, but do you have a favorite feature from this song?
Well, I think for me, it's definitely the highlight of every Rush song for me is the lyrics. The lyrics
You're the lyrics guy. You have the lyrics at the end of every show.
yeah, I really, really love, not only with Rush, but I love paying attention to lyrics. I think, you know, if you're going to write a song, it should be about something. Um, Certainly there are songs that I love that aren't probably not about anything.
Yeah.
But Rush songs are almost always about something, and you're always rewarded by digging into them. But beyond that, what I love is Neil's playing, is that he switches up his drum patterns, the bass drum pattern, hi-hat pattern in every verse of this song. And you don't really notice it. I never even really noticed it until I was doing some research for talking about this song. And then you listen to it and you're like, how is he even remembering how to play that from verse to verse? And it really just propels the song in a different way every single verse. It really is something fantastic.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jerry. I think the drums are what stands out for me. It's different every verse. At the end, Neil is just smashing away at those cymbals. The ending is just amazing. And we read from Neil's liner notes in the tour book that Alex and Neil sort of became the rhythm section on this album and in this song. Geddy was playing the keyboards, so it wasn't bass and drums as the rhythm section. It was guitar and drums.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a different way for Rush to work. And Neil really, really loved that. And Alex really embraced it.
Yeah, and these are the kind of small things that make this song so interesting, because you don't really hear that bass. You don't really hear that drum pattern. You don't really pick up that the rhythm section is the guitar and the bass.
Yeah.
But it comes through in some way. That's what sets this song apart from so many other Rush songs or other songs in general.
Yeah. It's, and again, like what you guys say about every song that you cover for Rush, and a great solo by Alex.
Great.
Yep. Solo is amazing.
It is great. And, you know, the thing is that this is really where he started using his whammy bar too. He switched over, I think, exclusively. Somebody's gonna correct me on this one. I know it.
You said the same thing on the podcast.
Did I really?
I think you did. Yeah, I think you did.
You said someone's going to correct me, and nobody did. So
nobody did. So I guess it's right.
You're right.
Yeah, there you go.
He switched over from Gibson's Defenders, and he used his whammy bar. Then he just leaned on that whammy bar for the next 4 albums, and it just changed the way he played. It changed the way he approached soloing, because he could just get so much more range in between everything he was doing. And he was using it while he was just strumming along. It just adds texture. I mean, his guitar playing changed. That's another thing I think that hardcore early Rush fans don't like, is that his guitar playing changed, and it had to change because of all the keyboards.
Mm-hmm.
But it changed in such an interesting and dramatic way from the riff-based kind of playing to more of an emotional, space-filling, dive-bombing, just an amazing way to fill up this space that you really don't hear from guitarists, because the guitarists are always, you know, knocking at the door wanting to come in and play a solo for you. But Alex is a master guitarist, and he can play in any nook and cranny, and that's what he does.
And what I love about Alex is that he has managed to do so many different types of sounds, and yet it's still identifiably Alex every time.
Right.
But it's like there's almost no two things that he plays that are the same, and yet it's always just, that's Alex.
Right.
Subdivisions is my second favorite Rush song of all time. I don't know what my top 10 are, Steve, but I do know that that's number 2 for me, and number 1 is also on this album.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
which is why this is my favorite Rush album. We're going to move on to The Analog Kid. This is a companion piece to Digital Man.
Mm-hmm.
And what I really love about this song is that huge spatial sound during the you move me sections.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that is Rush trying to somewhat create the lyrical connection with the music of the Spheres.
Mm-hmm. And it's something Rush couldn't have done on a previous record without the keyboards. The keyboards really make that section for me.
Mm-hmm.
And this, you talk about top tens, this is in my top 10 Rush songs. This is my favorite song on the record. The bass line is iconic. It's the rockinest song on the record. The lyrics are brilliant. Every person can relate, or at least every boy can relate to being that 12-year-old boy
Yeah.
lying in the grass dreaming.
Yeah, for sure.
And it contains one of the best solos too, Alex's solo. Because
yeah.
that section where he's soloing, it's just really the three of them. If you listen really, really closely, you can just almost hear the three of them in a room. Alex on one side, Getty on one side, Neil right in the middle, because there's nothing else. There's just space between each instrument. You know, another complaint about this album, I know all the complaints about this album, is that it's muddy sounding. You know what I mean? Like everything just kind of blends together. But in that moment, there's separation between all of these different things, and all three of them are just killing it. It's kind of, you know, like the crazy jammy solo part in Free Will. You know, the three of them are just all just going crazy, and it just sounds beautiful. If you listen in headphones, you can really hear the separation between the different instruments.
Yeah, I was listening to this today. I listened to the song twice in a row, trying to pick out what I was going to say about it, and I wrote down the bass, the guitar, the drums. It's just everything works, and everything is so frantic yet controlled in this song, and it's just virtuosic from all three of them. And by the way, if you don't want this to be a muddy album, pick up the 5.1 surround version.
There you go.
Invest in some equipment, and it's worth your while. Analog Kid's tremendous song. Steve's favorite song on the album. Gerry, is this your favorite, or we haven't got to it yet?
No, mine's Subdivisions.
Subdivisions. All right.
Yeah.
I also love that wop, 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 wop before the solo.
Yes.
And at the end.
And at the end.
That.
It's tremendous. Okay, let's move on to Chemistry. This was a song that was developed during sound checks for the Moving Pictures tour. Neil said it was the easiest one to write. And it was the first time that all three, Lee, Lifeson, and Peart, all collaborated on the lyrics for a Rush song. This is one of those songs where you can kind of get a sense of maybe the production being a little bit muddy, if you like the word, or muted. But I just love the feel of this song, just the vibe that it gives you.
Yeah, Steve, did you tell me a story about Terry Brown in this song? Was it this song?
No, that was the next song, Digital Man.
That was Digital Man. What I love about Chemistry, and something that I think Steve brought up in the podcast, I had a different idea of what the song was about, and Steve's of the mind that the song is really about the three of them, and just the chemistry of being able to create something that's, you know, larger and better than the sum of its parts.
Well, I think what you pointed out, Jer, was the beginning of the song is about, you know, actual chemistry. And then as we get toward the end of the song, it ultimately becomes about Getty, Alex, and Neil and the chemistry that they have together.
About personal chemistry.
Yeah. And I think that's the reason why they all took part in the lyric writing of this song. And it's the last Rush song that Getty or Alex has a lyric credit on, believe it or not.
Yeah, it's almost like they started off at the micro, like the cellular level, and then they like sort of zoomed out from there.
A very natural sciencey.
Yeah,
well, that's another thing. That's another thing they do. That not only do they build a lot of times musically from one spot to another, but the lyrics do the same thing, and they definitely, like you said about the Analog Kid, how the music matches the, you know, the lyrical content. That's the same thing with this too, is that as the lyrics build up from, like you said, simple to the more complex, I think the music does the same thing.
And I love the solo at the beginning which is a
Right,
weird
yeah.
spot for a solo, but it works perfectly here.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Alex just has this way of doing exactly what is right for every single song, every single time. Really incredible.
Yeah. I don't know what his ability is to read or write music, but I can't see him sitting there scribbling like eighth notes and stuff. He's just
No.
what do I need? Okay. I know what this
Yeah.
needs. Yeah.
He goes by feel completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard and read a couple of things where he just kind of, you know, they're working on the solo and he'll just step up, play it, and then they're like, I think that's it. And he's like, let me give it a couple of tries. And he tries a couple of things, and they're like, no, that was the first time. Sometimes on some songs, they use the solo that they put together for the demo.
Yeah. Yeah.
The first time he ever played a solo for the song, he played on a demo, and then that's the final solo that they use. So, I mean, he like you said, he plays by feel. I'm sure he does read music, maybe not a lot. I'm sure he's not charting everything out, I don't think, like you said. But he just has an emotional connection to his instrument. He just plays by feel. He can connect to his own emotions and bring them out in the guitar.
Yeah, I think it must be amazing to be so good at something that you're just like, oh, let me give this a crack, and you do it, and then you're like, okay, let me try a couple other things, and it's like not as good as you just nailed it the first time so well that you can never you can't improve on it.
Right. I remember there's one story where somebody, like, he played some solo, and then they went back and they listened to it, and somebody was just like, oh yeah, so play that part again. And he's like, what part? Like, he didn't even remember. Like, I don't even know how it goes. I just played it off the top of my head.
I can only imagine that how many times he's played something and maybe nobody had the tapes rolling.
Right.
And how amazing that probably was.
And we'll never know.
Yeah, but he's one of those guys that just does it right the first. It's almost like if an architect is like, okay, go build what you think this thing should be where we have these shows, and they build the Sydney Opera House.
Right.
It's like, okay, I can do another one if that's not good enough. No, I think you got it.
Right. Then 6 months later, does it again. Makes the Chrysler building the next time. It's like, what?
All right, so let's move on to Digital Man. The writing again for this one began back in '81. So Neil was he had some good ideas, and then he was going out on tour and playing other stuff, and they were working on stuff in sound checks, and then it eventually ended up some of it being on Signals. And this is such a different feel from most Rush songs, and yet it's still, like I said, it's uniquely Rush, identifiable as Rush, but it's not something that if you were weaned on Caress of Steel, you'd be like, this is not even the same band, but yet it is.
Yeah, Neil called it disco, and like Gerry said, Terry Brown was so unhappy with the direction this song was going in, he initially refused to take part in it. He walked out of the studio. They had to talk him into coming back in, which I think is what ultimately led to Rush parting ways with Terry Brown. They just didn't see eye to eye anymore.
Yeah.
But to me, this song is incredible. Geddy's bass line is amazing. There's a reggae sort of feel to the bridge part that's unbelievable. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite songs on the record. I guess you would agree too, right, Jer?
Yeah, and it starts off with that great drum. That great
Yes.
I don't even know what do you call that? Drum line? What is that thing?
Yeah. Drum fill.
Sure, it's a fill. It fills in. It is just unbelievable sounding, just like he's thumping tubs over there. And it certainly is a very, very strange song. I think I had a hard time trying to figure out what the song was really about, right?
Yes. Yeah, we weren't sure.
Every once in a while there's a stumper, and this is definitely a stumper of a song. But if it's supposed to be I was going to say the analog to the Analog Kid. If it's supposed to be the companion to the Analog Kid, I suppose that it's just about, early digital technology and how it affects human beings.
Mm-hmm.
But that's my guess.
Maybe he was thinking about artificial intelligence and things like that. He don't need a bed. He won't need a bed. He's a digital man.
Right. He lives inside his computer.
Yeah. I don't know. It's an interesting song. It's clear that those guys were listening to the Police a lot.
Mhm.
Yep.
I mean, you even get some Stuart Copeland vibes from the drumming in some parts of this.
Yeah.
Throughout the album and different places, and this is one of those places. But and then that whole very strange ending where Geddy just starts to talk.
Yeah. I love that.
He plays fast forward.
Yeah. So you don't need a bed. He's a digital man.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
I think it's his sense of humor showing up too.
Yeah, for sure.
Which comes up a lot.
I think it would have been great to just have let that play out a little more before they faded it, to see where that would have gone.
It's also kind of a long song too, comparatively to the shorter songs that they started doing. It's over 6 minutes long.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is a very, very, very strange song, if you ask me.
It's the second longest song.
Yeah.
Yes.
By 1 second.
We wondered on the podcast whether the analog kid and the digital man not only were they the same person, but were they Neil?
Yeah, I remember that conversation that you guys had. It's so, I mean, the guy was just so good at what he did that you start to look for things that maybe even aren't there, especially when you read that note about that this was a conceptual piece, and then eventually, with Countdown, you're leaving the planet. It's like you're starting out in the suburbs, and then it's like this journey, and Neil's like, yeah, we were hoping nobody would have noticed that.
Yeah,
we weren't talking about that, but you caught that, eh? Busted. But yeah, it's easy to start almost overanalyzing to the point where you're like, is Neil talking about himself here? I mean, because Neil did put so much of himself in the lyrics.
Yeah, he kind of cautioned against that, saying that not everything was as literal as some fans think they were. But I still do it anyway. It doesn't bother me. I like to think it's Neil.
Hey, if Neil doesn't like it, he can come down and say something.
Even if I had ever spoken to Neil, he's like, that song's not about me. I'm like, yeah, it is. Come on. It's totally about me. Right? But the thing is that he had such a great way of tapping into some kind of common area in everyone's lives that you kind of think, well, I feel that way, so he must feel that way. He was just such a great writer that way, that he could just, tell you things about yourself that you didn't even know you thought about. And then you're just like, oh my God, yeah, that's how I feel about this subject too. So you obviously are just going to, impress your own emotions onto him.
He might have made a good counselor.
Yeah. He might have been a great counselor.
Yeah. Let's move on to part 2 of Fear. The Weapon, which was great. Had a great live intro from, I forget the actor's name, from SCTV.
Right. The Count.
The Count, yes. This is a fantastic keyboard song. The Weapon is a great, I mean, if you just heard Rush from this point on, you would think, well, Geddy's a keyboard player and sometimes he plays bass. But it's the opposite. So tell me what you like about The Weapon, guys.
I think this is a perfect example of what Neil was talking about with Alex and he becoming the rhythm section. I mean, Alex, to me, carries this song, even though it's keyboard heavy. The guitar stands out for me. What do you think, Jer?
Yeah, it's definitely, I say this a lot about Rush songs, but it's an odd song. It definitely is an odd song. There's that whole section in the middle that's ostensibly the solo, where Alex is just kind of noodling. He's just making these noises. He's just not, I mean, it's not even really a proper solo, but there's so much stuff going around him. And Neil is just kind of keeping this rhythm, this really kind of tight rhythm. And every once in a while, he adds a stroke, and then he adds another stroke, and then he adds another stroke, and then he adds another stroke until the end where he's playing and the song just kind of kicks right back into where it left off before they started doing the whole noodly thing.
Yeah.
It's a great example of Rush as a band playing a song as a band. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I just like to imagine them in the studio playing the song and just kind of like looking at each other like, okay, you know, two more bars.
Yeah.
And that's where we're going to come right back in. And they all know that's where it's going to crash back in. And as somebody pointed out, I don't know if we pointed it out ourselves, if somebody pointed out, is that being the middle part of a 3-part song, this song fades in and fades out.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it connects the other two, because the first, you know, the first.
The Enemy Within.
Yeah, I was going the other way. The Enemy Within is the first one, but it's not on. It's on the next album.
Right.
That just kind of jumps in. It starts on a dime. It does no preamble. It just kind of bangs right in, but fades out. This song fades in and fades out, and then the Witch Hunt, of course, that fades in and then ends. I mean, it's really, there's an architecture here that you have to, 3 albums ahead, you have to be thinking to do this song, or to even remember the names of the songs. I'm liking this.
Apparently.
I bet they were really good chess players.
Oh, I'm sure.
Think ahead. But
Star Trek 3-dimensional chess.
I will say it's probably easier to put together a playlist of the Fear songs than the Gangster of Boats trilogy.
That's true.
Yeah, where are those songs on the cutting floor?
I'd like to hear the rest of that.
Right.
Yeah, so we've got part 4. We need the other 3 parts of the trilogy. Yeah, I think The Weapon is a terrific song. Like I said, for me, I think mostly the keyboards stand out, and the fact that you don't hear many songs fade in and fade out is kind of crazy. But I like that you could actually loop this song and it would just never end. And these, you would hear them continuously. You know, like you said, they get into the noodling and then they just find their way back in this this very seamless way. It's and it would be the same thing if you put this song, just cut it, you know, one after another, and it would be the same. It would be kind of the same effect. It would be interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's get to our second single off this album, New World Man. Second in the running order. I actually didn't write down what order they were released in, but so much Police influence on this song.
Yeah. The bass line to me is what stands out. It's iconic. One of Geddy's best, I think.
Yeah.
And when we spoke to Lex, the guy who does the bass for our podcast, he picked this as. Who picked this as one? Did I pick this as one of my favorites, or did he?
I did, I believe. And Lex agreed with me.
Lex agreed because if you just hear this bass line, you know what song this is.
Yeah.
Which is unheard of. I mean, how many songs? There are probably tons of them. I can't think of one right now where if you just hear the bass line, you're like, oh yeah, I know what song that is. Because the bass lines usually don't carry songs like that. But in New World Man, it does.
Yeah, you're right. There's probably not that many. You could probably pick out Roundabout by Yes from the bass line and a few others.
Sure,
but yeah, this is a great bass song, and it's because it's so similar in style, in a Rush kind of way, to the Police. I wonder how much that played into that being a single off the album.
I don't know if Rush has much to do with that, though. Isn't it the record company that picks the
Well, that's what I'm
singles,
saying. I'm saying, like, if the record company said, "Oh, that sounds like the Police. We should make that a single." That's what I'm thinking might have happened in this situation. I haven't researched it, but it seems logical that if the Police are having success, and this song sounds like the Police, he would pick that as a single.
Well, and also it was only 3.5 minutes, which is huge for a single.
Yes, that helps. You don't have to cut that down.
The thing that amazes me is what Gerry was talking about before, that they wrote it in a day, they recorded it the next day, and it was their biggest hit. I mean, how crazy is that?
Right.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And especially this, and the song is definitely a lot heavier than it appears to be. You know, it's tackling some
Mhm.
big world issues, social issues between first world countries and third world countries, and who's going to make room for the new world man. Like, what does it
Mhm.
mean for emerging countries to become first world countries? Like, where's the room for that? Where's the space for that? Who loses in that kind of race?
Yeah.
But you know, you can tap your feet to it.
You
It's
sure
got
can.
it's got like a bubbly keyboard to it. I
Mhm.
mean, it's very sly. That's another great thing about the band. If we just want to talk about the band in general, is that they can take influences. They're not like other bands, you know, that have their style and they're just like, well, this is us. You know, we're Motorhead. We do Motorhead. You know, or we're AC/DC. We do AC/DC. They're Rush. They do
Whatever they
Rush, but
want.
they do whatever they want. They are influenced by the Police. They want to throw in a little, you know, reggae beat in here somewhere, or
Mhm.
just leave room in spaces and songs where, you know, prog bands might just fill it all up. Man, whatever, man. This is the song, and this is how the song works, and this is how Rush is going to do it.
Yeah. Talented guys. This was one of the ones where when you guys broke down this album, that was one of my favorite lyrical discussions that you guys had. Was for
Oh,
this
great.
song.
I hope I didn't just ruin it by talking about what I just said. It might have contradicted
No,
everything I said before.
no, you didn't contradict yourself.
You can. I don't. I should have wrote down the episode numbers for these because I don't remember what they were. But if you go check out the Something for Nothing podcast back episodes, yeah, I think this is
51,
worthwhile.
52, and 53, Michael.
There you go. There you had it right there.
Steve has a mind like a bear trap.
No. I just looked it up before we started this.
All right. We're going to get to a very different song now. Track 7, Losing It. And this is probably not a widely popular opinion among Rush fans, but for me, this is my favorite Rush song of all time.
Wow. Number one.
Number one, and it's not even like I don't even hesitate. It's just as much as I love Rush and as much as I love so many of their songs, I don't really even know what it is about this song that speaks to me. I know I love the ethereal weirdness of the electric violin that Ben Mink plays. I love the lyric, um, the idea of it's so much you rubes have no idea what it's like to have this great gift and then lose it. You know,
Right.
you know you don't know how lucky you are not to have experienced this and then have it taken away, kind of thing. And of course, I was going through a big at one point in my life was going through a big Ernest Hemingway phase, and you know it references Ernest Hemingway's life as well. So and there's just so many elements here that spoke to me, and it's just so different than anything that I've heard from any band that I just I gravitated toward it. Losing It is my favorite song.
Did you get a chance, Michael, to see them perform it live as we did?
I did, and I don't cry in public often, but the tears were just rolling.
It was so emotional. Probably the greatest performance of any song that I've seen Rush do live, at least in my opinion. What do you think, Jerry?
Oh yeah. Who was playing violin when you saw it?
That would have been the other Dinklage.
Jonathan Dinklage.
Yes.
we had him on the podcast too, and we talked about this song.
Yeah, I haven't listened to it yet. I'm saving that one.
Oh,
you'll love it. You'll love it.
That's one of my favorite episodes. But he goes into, you know, more detail than the two of us could go into what it meant to him to play this song. And it's always been one of my favorite songs too. I mean, as a 17-year-old listening to this album and loving this song, loving this song when I was 17 definitely made me feel like a character in Subdivisions. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's such an emotional song. It's such a mature song. And but that again, I hate to just say how great Rush is all the time. Obviously, that's what we're here to talk about.
Yeah.
But they can put a song like this on an album with an electric violin, And this is one of the songs, at least at the beginning, where Neil is not, the crazy drum god that everybody says he is. He is a crazy drum god, but in this song, he's just playing along to the song until the end, where the solo comes in, of course, and Alex just wipes the floor with everybody in the room.
Yeah.
It gets so heavy and so dark, right? The song just turns on a dime. It's this beautiful thing. It's so sad, and these characters are losing their gift and shuffling off into the darkness and closing the door behind them and never seeing the sun again. And then, boom, and then all of a sudden, the rain clouds open up and the solo comes.
Yeah, it's
really beautiful.
It's amazing. I think that might also have a bit to do with it. Is one of the, when I was growing up and I heard this song, it was so much deeper than most of the stuff I was listening to. Of course, especially in the early 80s, pop music was all over the place, and then then the hair metal bands came in and that kind of thing. Right. And this was it's like such a mature song and so serious, and that probably held some appeal to me as well.
I mean, it's just, again, it's another reason I think why some of the older Rush fans kind of lost their interest in the band at this point because of a song like this, I mean, as a Rush fan, again, coming later on in their career, to me, it seems totally normal to me, because if you think about Rush going from 2112 to A Farewell to Kings, I mean, that's so much more different, I think, than going from Moving Pictures to Signals, right? 2112 is this bombastic, sidelong, opus that's just so loud, and there's explosions at the end, and there's people coming from other planets to, take over again.
Yeah.
And then the next album opens up with like a 12-string acoustic classical guitar and birds chirping in the background. I mean, that's radically different. Yeah. To me, Signals is not that much different than previous albums.
I just think it's a matter of Rush fans buying the album, hearing the keyboards, and then just not giving it a chance. And what we're finding with our podcast is a lot of those 70s Rush fans are listening to us and hearing us talk about albums like this and like Power Windows and like Hold Your Fire, and then going back and listening and saying, you know what, this stuff's pretty good. We're converting some people, and that to me makes what we're doing so worthwhile.
Yeah, I had not heard Clockwork Angels in a while, and I listened to your series on Clockwork Angels, and it really made me want to listen to it for like a week solid. It made me have a deeper appreciation for the album, even though I already liked the album. I just said, wow, I can't go this long without hearing it again, now that I have this better appreciation and understanding for the album. And I talked about the tears coming for Losing It. If you can get through The Garden without tearing up seeing that live, I don't know, you just must not have feelings, I guess.
It's true. Doing the podcast is like, it's like every Rush fan's dream, is like cornering somebody at a party and telling them how great Rush is so that they go back and listen to it. And when people say that that's what they do, like, oh, I had never listened to this album before because I didn't like it the first time, and then after hearing you discuss it, I went back and I really like it now. That's what you feel like. You're the Rush fan at the party who finally gets to convert somebody.
Yeah, it's got to be a great feeling. I listen to you guys when you read the emails, and I can tell how touched you are at being able to reach people on that kind of a level.
Well, I'm going to do another segue. One person I haven't been able to reach is Gerry about the last song on Signals, which is Countdown.
Yeah.
Gerry doesn't like Countdown.
See that segue?
That's in my notes to bring up. I was going to ask, it says right here, has Gerry come around on this yet?
Well, here's the thing, is that it's never been one of my favorite songs, and I could never pinpoint why. And then someone, after the Signals episodes, someone sent us a link to a version of the song without the NASA overdubs,
I
without
remember.
the countdown thing. And I like that one better. I don't know why. I have no idea. I think the song was exactly the same except for the Mission Control countdown overdubs. And then I was listening to it today, the regular album with the countdown, and I was playing some games with my daughter, and we were listening to it. And I was like kind of half listening to it, and I really got into the groove of the song. The song has a really good
Ooh.
groove at the end.
It
So
really does.
I don't know. Sometimes here's the thing with a lot of people I've heard from or just know is like lyrics are secondary. You know, they want to feel what the song is about. They just want to feel the emotion of the song. I've gotten emails from people saying like, I've been listening to Rush since 1980 and I never knew what this song was about. You know what I mean? Like they listened to it hundreds of times and they never really gave a thought to the lyrics. And that's what I always give a thought to. So I think with a song like Countdown, if I can not listen to the lyrics, then it's a really good song. Which is just a strange way for me to listen to Rush.
Such an odd choice for a single.
Very odd. Very
Yeah.
strange.
This was the other of the 3 singles on the album, and it's almost 6 minutes long. I don't know what the single length was, or if there was a different length for the single, but it's a very strange pick. I always was a big sort of NASA space flight kind of guy, so I never had a problem with this album and the lyrics, and I kind of knew. I mean, I see your point with the whole you could cut it with a knife kind of being a little trite for a Rush lyric, but it was the other one you had a problem with
The stuff of dreams. Yeah.
Stuff
But
of
someone
dreams.
wrote in and said that's from
That's a Shakespeare thing.
a Shakespeare thing, and I was like, oh yeah, no, I feel like a dummy.
Yeah, he's kind
So
of
yeah,
he's kind of good.
that's yeah, it was a good reference. So sorry, I screwed that one up.
Yeah.
I don't know why I never made that connection, but
So you do like it as long as you don't hear the NASA countdown stuff.
yeah, I mean, there are other Rush songs that I don't really like at all. This one, I just thought, they always have such great closing songs for their albums. And I just think that this one is a lesser kind of sounding song, especially for an album that's so great. I don't know. I just wanted it to end a different way. I've always wanted this album to end a different way. I don't know why.
Would you have changed the tracking order on this?
No, every other song. That's the other thing too about Rush songs is they're always tracked so great.
They are.
I can't imagine it's a failing of my own. I think obviously so many people love this song. I've got to come around sooner or later. I just have to find a way to appreciate it more than I do.
What I love about this song is that it's so meaningful for Geddy, Alex, and Neil because they were there to witness the space shuttle launch. And to me, I feel like you can feel in the song that it's meaningful to them. If that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, I agree. I think you do feel the excitement that they felt at seeing this. What did he say? Called it the dragon, the white dragon, or whatever.
The sleeping white dragon.
Sleeping white dragon. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a pretty good. That's a pretty good metaphor right there. I think.
Yeah.
That's a great nihilism right there.
Right. I'm changing my mind even as we speak.
Yeah.
We're converting Gerry.
I mean, you guys obviously you just have such a love for this band, or you wouldn't do what you do with the podcast. And I imagine that every day is like rediscovering Rush, almost like for the first time.
Yeah, what we're doing is not only helping our listeners rediscover Rush, but we're helping ourselves rediscover Rush. We're learning so much about every song and every album, and I love Rush more now than I did 2 years ago. Much more. Don't you think, Jerry?
Yeah, there were definitely some albums that slipped past me at the time. Test for Echo did that. I think I listened to Counterparts a lot. It never was my favorite, but then when I started listening to it again, but definitely Vapor Trails, I didn't really give a good hearing to to Vapor Trails, probably because I didn't like the way it sounded. We
Talk
still
about your
saw them.
muddy. Talk about your
Yeah.
muddy production there.
Mhm.
Right. And we definitely saw them on that tour a few times, and I thought the songs were great, but I don't think I ever listened to the album after the tour. And then when we listened to it for the podcast, we had to do 4 episodes on that album.
Yeah.
Because the songs were so incredibly full and rich, and the meaning behind all of the songs, if you read them against what Neil had just gone through in the past, the 5 years previous, that album's like a masterpiece. I wish I could put it in my top 5.
You could.
I could, but I don't think I can.
But when that episode
Oh my
happens, it'll be a surprise to everybody.
Jeez Louise, it's impossible. I don't want to do it.
Yeah, it's like I read Ghost Rider, and you have definitely a different view of that song once you've read that book.
Yeah.
There's
definitely.
no way to hear that song the same way after you've read Neil's book and then you hear it again. It's so amazing and so sad and dark and all of those things. And but I hear what you're saying about losing track. I when I was working in sports is kind of when Counterparts and Test for Echo came out, and I kind of missed them the first time around. And I think Vapor Trails was me returning to Rush when that came out. And yeah, like you, I was like, okay, the sound of the album isn't great, but I could tell there were some good songs in there. What do you guys think of the remixed version of Vapor Trails?
I like it much better myself. I think it's terrific.
I think it's terrific too.
Yeah, I noticed when they released a couple of the tracks on the was it the retrospectives, the compilations, and you could tell right away that those songs opened up nicely when they were remixed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just a shame that I don't know how it got out like that. I mean, it's just so strange, right?
Yeah.
Usually the band is so protective of their material, but you know, it turned out great in the end. So that's all any of us should really care about.
Yeah. I guess sometimes you can put too much trust in your producer. No, trust me, this is great, guys. This is
sounds great.
Like, okay, you know, and then you hear what someone else does to it, like a Steven Wilson remix, and you go, "Wow,
really."
What were we thinking?"
Well, at least they were willing to correct their mistake and put out the remix, which I give them credit for.
Yeah,
that's very true.
Yeah, I think once it was out in the world and they were playing these songs live, and people said these are really great songs, it's a pity the way the record turned out.
Right.
And they went back and thought, yeah, these songs we played them live. We put out the live album. They sound like this here, and they sound like this here. They need to breathe a little bit.
Right. But that's also the great thing about the band in general, is that you can always go back and listen to stuff. I'm pretty sure that I'm very, very confident that even if they hadn't done the remix version and I had listened to it for the podcast, I would still love it. Yeah. I just don't think there's any way I wouldn't have loved it. It's just too bad that production got in the way of my liking it the first time.
Yeah. Well, and then that's a good thing too, is you get to rediscover these things, and then you can fall in love with them all over again. Like I said, it wasn't that I didn't like Clockwork Angels. It was just for whatever reason it got put on a shelf, and I hadn't listened to it in a while. And I listened to your podcast and went, I got to get that out. And then I was like, wow, this is a really good album.
It's like getting a new Rush album, right?
There you
it's
go.
Like, wow, they just released a new Rush album.
Yeah.
At least new to me.
It's also one of the few benefits of getting old and having a bad memory.
Oh,
exactly.
Yeah,
it's like,
really.
Wow, this really sounds good. I forgot. I forgot how good it sounded. Yeah. So we've gone back through Signals, my favorite Rush album. You guys have both proclaimed a very fond feeling about it. And I don't know if you had any sort of overall thoughts you want to use to sum up this album.
Well, to me, it's special to me because it was one of the first Rush albums I ever owned. So it's one of my top albums. I'm not going to say top 5, but it's up there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a classic, and all 8 songs are great for me. Jer?
Yeah, I mean, it has Subdivisions on it. I mean,
that's it.
That's all you need.
Yeah, that's all you need. That's all. The album could have been, Subdivisions 8 times. It's just Subdivisions is such an amazing composition. It's just an incredible songwriting. It's incredible songwriting. It's incredible song. And it really is the song that a lot of nerdy Rush fans point to. The stuff in the 70s is definitely nerdy because it's prog rock or whatever.
Swords and sorcerers.
Yeah. And when like the alienated Rush fan who doesn't feel a part of anything larger than himself, Subdivisions is his song. And if you can package in a thought like that, or a feeling like that, and an emotion and in a song like that, and have that song be a hit, and have that song, be played at concerts all the time, and have people just love this song because it's their life. I mean, you can appreciate songs from bands all you want, but it's hard to find a song that people connect to like people connect to Subdivisions.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think of it as musical literature.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Fantastic. You mentioned the composition. The composition is, the lyrics, the music, everything comes together perfectly. And I think all Rush fans, just based on this being a band that wasn't a big top 40 band, it was always a band that sold a lot of records, but it's never cool to be a Rush fan, but now it's cool to be a Rush fan. That's the great thing about time, is everything kind of comes around, and now it's the age of the nerd. Everybody loves the video games. Everybody loves the super. The comic book characters are coming to life on the silver screen. Everybody's going to see those, and we have it's maybe not fashionable, but somewhat cool to be a Rush fan.
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do. I think with I want to say the younger generation, and it makes me sound so old.
You are old.
The younger generation. But, my kids don't have the same they're not in the same boxes as we were when we were younger. They don't have the same kind of boxes.
Yeah.
There are no boxes. You can listen to Ariana Grande and Rush. You can listen to anything. You can watch soap operas and, telenovelas and Stranger Things. That you can have as many different varied interests as you like, and there isn't really the nerdy thing anymore. There isn't the you can't pinpoint one thing as being crazy nerdy, because everything seems to be equally accessible and equally popular among the people who like it, and those people have a voice to talk about the things that they like in a way they never had before. And I think if we had that with Rush, we wouldn't consider ourselves to be Rush nerds. We would just be Rush fans.
Yeah. And I didn't know where you were going to go when you talked about boxes. I was going to say, mine was an Atari 2600.
Exactly.
Oh, Steve.
Now,
go ahead and say what you're going to say, Jerry.
I was going to say, now if you have like a PS5 or whatever, it's not even it's a portal to the web, right? So.
Yeah, I don't even know. Like nowadays, they come out with these new gaming systems, and you can't buy them for like 3 years until they're already obsolete. So nobody has them in stock.
Right.
Steve and Gerry, you guys have been fantastic. I've really had a great time talking about Signals with you. Just as much fun as I had listening to you guys talk about it on your show and dissect everything. I like the way you go through the lyrics. I like that you break it down. You kind of talk about what each person. Since there's only 3 in the band, it doesn't take a long time. You talk about what each person does in the song. Of course, it's always an Alex's solo. That's everyone. That's the best. Every single and Alex's solo. It's almost like it's an afterthought. It's like we don't even have to say how great it was because they're all great. I've had a great time with this. This has been fun, and I want you guys to remind people where to find Something for Nothing, a Rush Fancast.
Well, we're housed on Podbean. That is our host, but you can find us on Apple, Spotify, Anywhere you get podcasts, we are there. Something for Nothing, a Rush Fancast. And if you want to follow us on Twitter, we're at Rush Fancast. Gerry posts our Instagram stuff at The Rushcast. And Michael, thank you so much for having us. We love your podcast as well, and it's been an honor being on yours.
Yeah, it was fun.
Well, I enjoyed it, guys, and love to have you guys back on and talk about your favorite Rush albums. So you better figure out what those are.
Oh, we know. Don't worry.
All right. Well, that will do it for this episode of Michael's Record Collection. Thanks again to Steve and Gerry from the Something for Nothing, a Rush Fancast podcast. Check them out. Follow them on Twitter. Follow them on Instagram. All of the things. Give them likes and subscriptions and 5-star reviews and all of those things. And of course, you can always follow this show on Twitter at Mike's Records, because they don't allow me to have enough characters to do the whole thing. And it's Michael's Record Collection on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and yeah, there's also a Patreon. So and then go to michaelsrecordcollection.com. Everything's there. You can access everything from there. You can sign up for the newsletter, all that stuff. So thanks again to Steve and Gerry. We'll see you next time.